Hi everyone, and welcome to another GC9x video. This is KaL, and with me today is...
Snarboo.
And also, our resident Sonic-y expert-y guy.
Oh, jeez. The Muteki. Welcome, everyone.
And, unsurprisingly, that means we're playing a Sonic game... Oh, wait. Oh, crap.
No Sonic in here, well, mostly.
Well, right, there's his palette-swapped original character, Mighty, there.
Yeah, from the way old arcade game known as Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, which is, you know, a trackball game, and probably the hardest game to get a sense of what it is like without ever having actually played it. So even if we were to someday do a GC9X thing, I'm not sure I would be particularly helpful in describing what that game is like. But
I mean,
yes, he is literally a Sonic clone.
It's like playing Missile Command, but a Sonic game. It's very complicated. Yeah, so I went through the menus and stuff, the game rebooted once, you know, all that good stuff.
Why do they even offer the manual save option, I wonder?
I don't know that it's particularly helpful one way or the other, but I will say that it's actually sort of good for the special stages. If you screw up a special stage, you can just reset, and you won't have lost your chance to get into that from the end of the level. You can just replay the level and go back into the special stage.
Okay, that
rather than
actually makes
auto-save
sense.
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit save scummy, but I don't hate it.
So, I mean, this is Knuckles Chaotix, as we said. I don't remember the plot of this game, other than it involves this magic dick ring here, the cock rings that they both carry.
Yeah,
That would
it's
have been a
weird.
much different game, I will say, if it happened to be attached to there.
And then I played... This game has a tutorial, and I don't skip it, but then I also get stuck in it
God.
because it's a
Yep.
terrible, terrible tutorial, but you should all suffer through the tutorial with me because that's the full experience that I wanted to give you.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, some of the stuff that it tells you to do, because it does stuff like sort of step by step, but then it doesn't actually, you know, register you as having done some of the steps properly. But yes.
Well, this is
C
really
button-
bad sign number one that we're seeing right here, that they need a tutorial for a Sonic game.
Yes, we have, like, each button on the controller for once does more than just let you jump. Sonic has generally been a one-button game up until this point. This is, like, the first time where it hasn't. Even bad games like Sonic Labyrinth, which, you know, the less said about the better, are still one button.
But, I mean,
This,
like,
though,
this one,
yeah.
it bugs me because they changed the jump button to the C button, which just throws me off every time.
Yeah, and there's not really a whole lot of good options for control configuration either. Like, you can sort of do it, but it's still just really kind of nasty.
I also believe,
there's this funny thing.
I was just gonna say, it doesn't let you use the 6-button controller, even though pretty much everyone would have
Yeah.
had one at that point.
Right. That's the silliest thing to me. Like, even just, you know, being able to set each individual button for a specific feature, or having, like, one of the 6 buttons be jump and hold together, like the Genesis-only prototype for this game. You know, that would have been nice. We should probably talk about that at some point, though, the prototype, because
We might get
interesting.
there.
Yeah.
Did you have something else you wanted to say about the controls? I cut you off, but,
Oh, no. Well, I was just saying, like, the A button is literally reserved to call your partner, which serves 2 functions. One, it shows off the fact that the 32X can be used to scale and rotate graphics. Technically, it's still sort of weird because there's no actual 3D hardware in here. You have to use, like, software CPU functions to do it all, and then, like, the only real graphics on the 32X is a frame buffer. So yeah, that's the sort of hardware we're dealing with here. The 32X was not good hardware design. But yeah, there's a button here that's used specifically to call your partner, and the partner call's only function as a gameplay mechanic is so that you can not get stuck in certain parts of the scenery. Because this game has huge issues with collision if you go at speed sometimes.
oh, it's gonna be
It's
great,
just
because
sort of
I've got plenty of
embarrassing.
those where you just be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hold on.
Yep, and rather than, you know, compensate with the gameplay function by just saying, oh, now your partner's not available, what they do is they take away 10 rings from you every time you use it. So they're penalizing you for their own bad design.
Well, okay, here's the good news. You can actually get negative red rings. And you can actually build those up to such a point that they still count as hit points too. It's weird.
Yeah,
the logic behind the negative rings.
Rings don't matter for hits in this game so much. If you have 0, or as Snarboo points out, technically negative rings, rather than being ejected from the stage outright, what happens is you first lose your partner, and you get, the necessary amount of invincibility behind that, which means you can... Generally, there's not enough stuff that's going to cause damage to you that it's even that much of a threat. It's just irritating because then you are in negative rings and neither get, proper score bonus for a level or have access to the special stage. But instead, when that happens and you lose your partner, you get your invincibility, but if you get hit after that wears off, like that small period before they come back, then you do get ejected from the level. But the thing about the stage is, there are no lives. So, you can theoretically die at any point in the game, and it doesn't really matter. On the one hand, the fact that they expect you to use the save system is a great example for why the live system is really sort of unnecessary in this game. But it's also odd, given that Sonic and Knuckles technically had, when you plug it in with Sonic 3, it keeps track of your lives and continues as you go through the game. So I'm a little surprised that they went that way, that there's no loss of progress whatsoever. But on the other hand, the less of this game you have to play, the better.
And how?
So I just want to say here, while we're talking about using the hold function and stuff, you can actually use the hold function to defy gravity. If you press it while your partner is moving upward, they basically just maintain momentum at an egregious rate. And you can fly through the vertical levels especially, really quickly.
And as you can see here, we have the 32x function going on.
Yeah, the 32x exclusive power-ups that
Yes.
make you bigger or smaller.
Yep.
And they're both kind of worthless.
Yeah, the small one is literally a power down. There is nothing good about it. It lowers your speed, it worsens your jump. But the problem is the big one makes you harder to control as well. And as we can see, we're already really getting into the problems with this game, which is that not only are things not always explained very well, but it's difficult to understand how to use this game's 100 unique mechanics in a way that makes sense.
It should have been reserved for a two-player mode where it would have made more sense to have to do those techniques.
Don't
Right,
try
and the two-player mode is actually more broken than single-player.
Yeah, because that hold function that you need to get your computer player to stand in place,
Which we're
does
using
not
right
work.
now.
Yeah,
So what is the second player supposed to do? I mean, when I heard that, I was my mind was blown. It's how are you supposed to do anything? 9/10 of the game is holding.
Yeah, part of it is that I honestly have no idea. And the other thing is that it makes literally any two-player actions like a tug of war that necessarily favors the player that's faster. Because, you have to go in opposite directions and then the faster player is going to have a little bit stronger pull.
Great use of physics there.
Oh man, yeah, once you stretch the ring's tension to the breaking point in places like that, the physics gets incredibly wonky, and that's sort of where you end up in those situations where you're falling through the levels and stuff.
Something I did want to note earlier that just completely set my mind until now, the training stage in this game looks very similar to something off the Amiga or something like...
Yeah, it's like Sonic 2
Amiga
as an
platformer.
Amiga game.
Yeah.
I like the way this stage looks, but just because it's a little bit more inventive than the way clones on, Green Hill Zone and Emerald Hill Zone tend to look. This feels like if you look at Green Hill Zone and then Emerald Hill Zone from Sonic 2, there's a continuity, but a change in elaboration and style that happens. And then between Sonic 2 and this, there's a similar elaboration and style. But ever since then, it's been sort of boring, and it's literally just, checkerboard texture on ground tiles sort of thing.
Right,
Sonic,
they mixed it up a lot here.
Yeah, there's a lot more elaborate stuff going on. And part of that is this wouldn't translate as easily to 3D as some of that other stuff would. You know, like just texture the ground that way.
Well, a lot of it is it's relying on the fact that it's a 2D basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fake 3D. You can't take fake 3D into real 3D. It just becomes insane.
Yeah, like to get this sort of working in 3D, and at the time you definitely couldn't. You know, you'd have to almost register every single box you're seeing there as a unique polygon with its special texture. Otherwise, it would just sort of look ugly, the way trying to make retexture some of the Sonic Adventure 2 stages, say, to look more like Emerald Hill Zone, just always is an ugly, sort of garbled, cheap mess.
I actually have a great example, not related to this game, but if you want to see sort of the trials and tribulations of that, the Abe's Odyssey and then the Abe's Odyssey 3D implementation, they had a lot of problems getting some of the 3D elements from the pre-rendered game to look even remotely right in the true 3D environments.
Yeah, it's like one of the things they did with that was there was a lot of repainting after they'd rendered everything to get some of the effects to work. So
well, they'd have to pre-bake some of the lighting the way that works on that. The original Abe's Odyssey was probably using, ray tracing for the graphics, and, we are still using... We're basically still using hacks to get 3D to work in real time and look kind of nice.
Yeah, like the idea that you could sort of, like, put those effects as an after effect it doesn't really make sense. There's no way to implement that stuff as like a shader or anything. Also,
this is where the game starts to break real badly, is when you're below your partner.
Yeah, like they sort of had that little bit in the tutorial where they discuss it. And again, if you held the A button to do the call player character, or call the CPU character, you could bring him back down to you and then throw you both up. But yeah, it's really hard to get it right. You have to keep the hold button held down. You have to stretch it out by like running in a specific direction, say. And then you have to let go of the D-pad without also letting go of the character. And there's one other thing I want to point out in the tutorial stage. It's sort of weird. In the third section where it's like at sunset, there's a little player switch option. You can hit that, and if you get to the end of the level before it wears off, you get to play that last section as SPO, which is not super exciting or anything, but sort of a fun little note.
But speaking of super exciting...
Yeah.
Let's got the bonus stage. We got to say something about this.
This is delightful. The one part of this game that really sort of feels coherent and works like on a sort of whole is more than the sum of its parts sense. Like this is a game that almost feels less than the sum of its parts most of the time. But the special stages are coherent. They represent an interesting challenge, and I would argue are the main focus of the game. Most of the actual stages are, once you understand how to exploit the mechanics, beatable within only a couple of minutes. But in order to beat the special stages, they're like at least as long as several of the levels, if not longer. So, just... I mean,
the only real flaw of that argument, I believe, is that the music in these is the same music, right? It's always this, like, almost very short loop of diddle-a-did, diddle-a-did,
yeah, there's like this one section that repeats a few times, then it does, your Wheel of Fortune style key change, and then there's like a chorus. It can get very, very old very quickly if you don't particularly appreciate that initial loop. And honestly, if there's one part of this game that I think is as close to unimpeachable as it gets, it's the music. The music is excellent all around. Like, at no point in the game do I think this music is, like, terrible.
Well, I mean, we talk over a lot of the music in the tutorial era. Not the tutorial room, that's kind of the give or take, but the run-up to the thing.
Yeah, that gets old after long enough. It doesn't take much.
Yes, here's the character select screen.
Yep.
I picked the best character.
Yes, Charmy, who is like Tails, except it can fly forever.
I think he is a bee, so...
Look at this. Now, if you saw it in the background of the sort of pre-game stages, you actually steadily approach this area, which is a very nice little detail that they have, but...
Yeah.
Oh boy, the catcher for the teammate. See, this is one of those mechanics that is so unnecessary to the game. Just let me pick my partner. If I have to suffer through this game, at least let me suffer in comfort.
That is one advantage than playing in 2-player mode allows. I will say
Right,
though,
you do get to
Charmy
choose your partner.
Yeah, Charmy's a great character, but I also I do actually really like, you know, our Sonic clone Mighty, because he feels like Sonic. He is fast. He can also climb up walls extremely rapidly. If you hold the joystick in like the upper diagonal facing the wall and just keep tapping the jump button, he scales walls incredibly quickly.
It's
Another
nice
great
that you
way to
mentioned this before. I actually do go through all the characters in this playthrough.
Yeah.
So you will see Mighty, and I will play as Mighty. And here we are at this stage. I immediately kill that guy.
And you can see how that works. Yeah, that was old Knuckles.
Poor Knuckles.
But eventually he comes back, so we're never
Yeah.
truly free.
I deliberately ignore the flashing thing that I'm pretty sure you have to deal with in order to progress.
Yes,
in
you
the
do
level.
have to. Yeah.
I deliberately ignore it for no reason.
The funny thing is despite the fact that the game tries to point out where it is, the way the level mechanics work, you can't always rely on it, because there are these sort of UFO teleporter things that you're supposed to ride throughout the stage in order to get where you need to go. And you know,
I do
they'll,
dig the
they'll
music, the
take you
difference
anywhere.
between
There's
the
no way- yeah.
the dark bits and the lit up bits when you hit the clocks.
Yeah, and while I did say the music is mostly unimpeachable, I do think that if you play through an entire stage without actually hitting it, that the music does get a little bit on the grating side. It's kind of a short loop again. Another thing I want to call attention to is that little blue ring icon in the middle there. You may have seen the collection of that power-up behind that wall earlier. And what that does is it... when you lose your ring as the opponent, as the computer player, excuse me, well, maybe opponent player, because of the way the physics work in this game, just being that hosed that you're almost working against them. But yeah, so here's the UFO thing I was saying. But yeah, when they lose a ring, they lose exactly one ring. When you lose a ring, you lose like all of your rings. So like basically 20 or so rings go flying. You can only collect, you know, so many of those. What the blue ring power-up does is, instead of losing like a whole bunch of small rings, you lose one big ring that's much easier to collect and stays on screen for a little bit longer. It'll start flashing and eventually disappear, but instead of going completely off, you don't actually you don't lose the chance to collect the rings. That's where it breaks apart into the 20 or so rings that you need to collect.
That's actually a really good idea for a power-up that I'm surprised
Yeah.
later games never adopted. And
I know,
here's
it
something
would
interesting.
be-
I didn't know he could get any smaller.
Yeah, I picked up the
Charmy's
small
actually
power-up as the
B-size
B.
now.
Yeah, the small power-up is just nasty as anyone other than Charmy, but since Charmy has basically full freedom of motion, and that's the thing, Charmy has full freedom of motion, so he is sort of constantly negating like the primary mechanic this entire game is based around. Like the weird controls that you have to deal with when you're going through the combi rig, as they call it in the game.
Oh yeah, and the other power-ups are obviously your characters get just arbitrarily changed different. It doesn't even make sense, like it just does it, like...
Yeah, there's like that monitor there. It gives you the AI switch. Like, it's not useful for anything. It's not even necessarily a power down, because your partner character doesn't really have much change.
With
I
two
would suggest
notable
using
exceptions.
Knuckles. Yeah. Like, I would suggest you use as an alternate character Knuckles, SBO, or what's the other one? Mighty, because they have relatively small hitboxes, and you know, it otherwise doesn't matter. Like, the hitbox
There
is
was
the
the
one
giant
defining
ring
thing.
there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
I should mention while we're there... Oh, there's the 3D effect
Yeah.
that you get, thanks to the
Yeah.
32X's superior power. You should
Yeah.
all enjoy that brief segment of a boss, because that's the only boss I fight in this entire playthrough.
It's like
Yeah.
a mini-boss, too. Like, it takes so long to get to the actual boss fights in this game because of the way the stages are
There
accessed.
are 5 acts and 5 stages. And the worst part is that each level has only a tiny amount of differentiation between each level. Like, almost everything is exactly the same place. Like, the maps just get progressively more complicated, which isn't so much helpful as it is just serves to make an already inscrutable design more inscrutable. And, you know, that was one of the simple levels that took us 4 minutes to get through. If you've never played this game before, it's probably going to be even worse.
Or if you're not Charmy, because I really just I just press jump until I finish the level.
Yeah, and so since did you go through the Combi Catcher again?
No, I tried to make Knuckles get in it. I wanted to swap Knuckles, but it was like, no.
Oh yeah. Like you'll see that the yellow and blue characters there are special because they aren't selectable for you. They're sort of powered down characters. The blue one, Bomb, there is a bomb.
I mean, we'll see those
called,
two. I do collect both of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we can get to the bomb.
Yeah, we'll discuss them later then, because there's just so much to talk about with this game.
So, what we're looking at here while we're speaking of stuff, this is the level select. It is not good.
It is random. It's almost a wonder that in an hour you managed to play each distinctive level.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
at least we're getting to the good one. Like, I sort of like that level for doing something remotely interesting, and if it hadn't overcomplicated its own design, would have been pretty good. The hunt for the little power thing to turn the lights on and get through the stage. Because if you do that without getting the lights, you lose, your progress through the stage just doesn't count. It's like you wasted your time through it. Which is, you know, that's a fun mechanic, or at least, you know, it wouldn't be so bad if only for the fact that, you know, the layout is just constantly fighting with you all the time to try to actually locate it.
I briefly switched to a Vector there, by the way. I got the power-up, but then I hit a different power-up and it deleted Vector, so too bad, buddy.
Yeah, there's that AI switch that brings you to Knuckles from whatever you were before, and the power-ups don't always intersect very well.
You know, for the longest time I've been trying to figure out why the stages themselves feel so, well, chaotic and not very well thought out. And I don't think it's just because, you know, it's just because of the way they're laid out. It's like there's so many of them. You access them at random.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other factors, I meant.
Tiny Vector, giant B.
So here's the thing about this game. Like, it was in development technically for a while as a tech demo on the Genesis. Like, it probably as soon as Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles came out, they were working on this thing. And so you have this basic tech demo of Sonic and Tails held together with the ring. And they go through two levels, one of them sort of a vertically stacked techno level that's a little bit resembling Launch Base, and then there's another one that looks sort of Casino Night-like or like the one that we saw before. And it's... Oh, that's another reason why you'd want to have saving like manual or automatic. You can control which player character you go through the game as, because exiting is, I think, the only way that you get to select.
Yeah,
which, of course, makes don't do saving, you know, an even sillier idea now that I think about it. Because then you're tied to exactly one character for your entire stay through the game.
Yeah, I mean, I switched to Mighty, because I actually do like Mighty as well.
He's one of the better characters. Knuckles is very middle of the road, but I think he's one of the slower ones. Vector is not as fast, but I think both Mighty and Espio are faster. Yeah, he's good in the air, actually. He's like, if Charmy could only fly like one time, just like a single dash attack. Good for getting around some enemies sometimes, but otherwise, you know, just sort of weird mostly. So here's stage 2 of the same level. This is like the other stage in the tech demo I was talking about, which, if you want to look up information about, is called Sonic Stadium, usually sometimes Sonic Crackers, one of those. But yeah, it was like a tech demo that has like an internal date of April 1st of 1994. Yeah, you can. Like, there are ROMs out there on the internet. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you do, because it's obviously very early. Mostly it's broken. But, you know, it's worth, I guess,
to be fair,
30 minutes of look, I guess.
we're just saying it's kind of broken, and we're playing Knuckles Chaotix, so it's like...
Yeah. Like, at least the collision in this game mostly works most of the time. Ooh, bonus stage.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, which is really nice, and you get these nice 3D sort of parachuting stages.
Yeah.
Which would later be, you would later see these in some of, or something very similar like the tower drops in later 3D Sonic games.
Yeah, like Sonic Unleashed really leads into that. No, actually,
it was 06 that did that first.
No, like I think a couple of the earlier Sonic games had done stuff like it, but I feel like Sonic Unleashed was probably the first one to really call attention to it in the Spain-Britain stage, Spagonia / Rooftop Run Day, and then Sonic Colors, had a few bits like that, and so did Sonic Unleashed after it, or not Sonic Generations. I'm sorry, I'm getting my Sonics mixed up.
There's so many of them.
Too many, God. One every couple of years.
Something I will note about this, and I think there's a technical explanation for why they aren't in this game. There are actually no corkscrew loops, no loop-de-loops, none of that.
Yeah, there is. Like, it's actually really easy to explain. The character art here is being drawn by the 32X, like that. The enemies, most of the power-ups and other items you're seeing here. And the way the 32X graphics works is that it's literally overlaid by everything the Genesis does, which is Genesis does, but it's the background and foreground layers. What you're seeing there, that's what that is. And those two power-ups that we've gotten through the bonus stage, those allow you to... God, there's so much to talk about because there's too much in this game.
Too many power-ups.
Yeah, like the one power-up there that looks sort of like the crane, slows down the crane so that you can select whichever character you want, and the one on the right there that looks like the little S with the 5 points shooting out of it allows you to select your stage for the next round.
And I use both of them.
Yeah, well, you should, if you get the option to.
It's funny they just didn't do that by default and have it be like extra hard mode that has the,
I mean, that would be sort of cool. Like, one argument I've seen for why they didn't want to do that, like, especially for the stages, was to hide how similar each act is for a specific zone.
Right.
Yeah, they want you to go through them in a random order.
But then the game would be, like, super short, which... is honestly, given how nuts this game is, I say that as sort of like a complaint, but really would not be a problem. Less of this game is better.
Yeah, this game feels long, and that's pretty shocking because it's not that long. Like
if you were going to try to beat it quickly, it wouldn't be too hard to beat it in an hour or so. If you knew the level layouts and, picked Mighty and a reasonably good partner character. And as you can see, sort of like in Sonic 1 special stages, you can control the speed of your falling, so if you hit enough downs, it's sort of like you've developed a parachute secretly.
This is, so the thing about this special stage is that you don't get thrown out of these in the same sense that you would.
You either run out of your rings, which are slowly ticking away, or you have to find an exit. But before we went in there, we were saying, how there are no loops in this game, which is true. There aren't any loops.
I hit a third bonus stage. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
This is how you play the game, is you literally go through messes of 2D stages to get to these bonus stages where you collect a whole bunch of rings in order to go through the special stages. Like, the actual levels are mostly an afterthought. I'm just having so much fun watching this.
Just hell,
I know.
You
have to think, if you don't like these bonus stages that we've seen like 3 times in a row just now, then there is no way that I can suggest that you should play Knuckles Chaotix, because you will not enjoy it. Because the level layouts are just so bizarre otherwise. Like, they're either extremely trivial if you ignore the bonus stages, or bizarre labyrinthine messes otherwise. So my suggestion is to treat these as sort of just you know, weird areas that you go through to find the bonus stages, and then eventually cash out in a special stage, which is the majority of the meat of the game. But, you know, again, there's just so much wrong with this game that we still haven't answered the technical question that I was tasked with before, you know, like 10 minutes ago.
I mean, the short answer is it's an overlaying issue. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, when you go through a loop, you know, at some point you have to say, you know, draw Sonic or Tails or Knuckles behind the loop. And unless you take like a corner of that loop and have the 32X responsible for drawing it, it's really, you have to just stop drawing the character at some point. You have to find something that literally masks the character, makes it invisible. And while there are some weird graphics mode you can do with graphics on the Genesis to do things like that with just background and foreground layers that every so often actually get used as a feature, like look to like the curtains in one of the final stages of I think it's World of Illusion for an example of where that works, or the Green Room stage on Dynamite Heady is another place where they use something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh right, yeah. Since it's an overlay, you can't properly draw them underneath the loop because that's all Genesis graphics. So either you use some unusual coding trickery or just, you know, a million extra partway through the loop sprites, or you just say, you know, we're not going to have loops in this game. And that's probably just as well, because there are also questions of loop collision that you get into where you sort of need the player character, the partner character, to have that hold effect. Or excuse me, the ability to call your partner to have them right next to you, because otherwise they can be in a different state of collision than you are in the loop and just get stuck trying to go through it and just not properly, you know, reaching you. And since your tether only goes so far, you just wind up stuck without the ability to call them. And if you go through Sonic Crackers, they have like 90% of an implementation on the circus speedway winder level, like
Did
the
you
one we just
purposely
played.
kill yourself there, or?
No, you can't really, it's not as easy to tell if you're not playing it, but despite Muteki's praise, those stages can be really jerky and hard to spatialize. So I went to the right, and then I was like, oh shit, a hole, and then I fell in it, because I didn't realize there was a hole right there. They're very jerky when you cross between the platforms. So this is me picking a character. Like, you don't really like have any penalty here. You just get to do what you want.
Yeah, you have the ability to scroll left and right here.
So I decided to pick the Chameleon again because we haven't seen him that much. So I just grabbed him. And I like his
I do like Espio, actually. He's got some
Espio's one of the better
cycles.
characters. He can literally run on walls, and his idle animation is a tech demo for the 32X. Just sits around and changes colors. Like that.
We come up to one of my favorite stages in this game. I really like
Marina
this.
Madness and the Skyscraper one are my two favorites, because they're both kind of interesting takes on Sonic stages, because I don't think there's ever been a boat stage previously to this game. There's never been a stage like this in a Sonic game previously.
Yep, you'd think this would be a water level, and there are some things that point to it being initially a water level. But it's not. There's no water in this game, probably because the drowning mechanic with a partner would be just confusing.
Nightmarish.
You just drop your character in the water and watch them drown over and over. Is that supposed to be like a large ring room or something? What's up with
exactly. They show up once you get 20 rings. So if you have fewer than that, they don't show up. So I don't think you go back there for what you're asking, but yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like if you collected the 20 rings and go back. Yeah.
Those boats are what make it so interesting. They're an active element of the background and the stage design.
Right. Yeah, and then there are these switches that you can step on, and they raise and lower the whatever it is. Not water level, obviously.
Yachts or something. I don't know.
Subma boats? I don't know.
Yeah, like they just seem to float in the air. Alright.
I like the music more than anything else in this, and the palette. The music and the palette of the stage is just very non-Sonic. It's so relaxing and idle.
Yeah, it's really great. So just, the chord progression behind here is very sort of standard jazz, what they call 2-5-1 chord arrangement, but it's really good. The instrumentation is excellent.
You know what it reminds me of?
I said,
kind of like a little bit like an Outrun sort of song.
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. It's that same sort of tropical, slightly jazzy feel to it.
Yeah.
It works really well, especially for this style. Might be my favorite stage song in the game, but, it's difficult to point... Oh.
Yeah.
And there's that giant ring breaking apart, as I said.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah.
So that's a mechanic I would like. Wait, what do the metal rings do?
The enemies drop metal rings in this stage.
They don't do anything. They're
so
like
weird.
the flowers in Sonic CD.
Oh, okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense then.
Like, think of this game as very much an extension of Sonic CD. I want to go into this now. Like, there are a whole bunch of credits common to this game in Sonic CD. In particular, like, the map design. Like, there are, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people responsible, I guess, for laying out how the levels are actually structured. And 2 of them, Kenichi Ono and Masato Nishimura, are both high-level guys with Sonic CD. Ono-san, let's see here, I close these tabs, was, I believe, one of the primary level designers on Sonic CD, and Masato Nishimura was one of, like, the lead designers.
Essentially, yeah, they both have very labyrinthine level design. Some of the robot designs are kind of similar too.
Yeah, that
Sonic CD stuff, like, there were some really odd design badniks in those games.
Yeah, they at least those had the consistency of all sort of being insect base. Here, if you even see them on screen, just because this game can move so quickly, they tend not to represent major threats most of the time. There are only a couple that really, I'd say, do interesting things. One of which we saw on screen for like a brief second before we got hooked on the weird combi ring mechanic yet again. Which is like this sort of weird octopus character that will capture your teammate and try to knock them into you. And if they do, it causes damage. Like, that's an interesting enemy that actually sort of takes into account the way the mechanics work in this game.
Wait, was that actually some spikes I saw there? That's something else that's really missing from this game. Whoa, hello, you just
Jeez,
broke the
I don't
physics
know.
too.
Yeah, just whatever. I do like the little rainbow sperm cars in the background. I don't know what they're supposed to be, but they're
Rainbow sperm guys.
well, have a look at him.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you mean.
Oh, the things just flying around? Yeah. I've never
Weird
noticed those
balloon
before.
things.
Like, I never pay attention to the backgrounds because there's just too much going on in the foreground to even really sort of have it register.
I mean, this game has some very busy and elaborate backgrounds because it's got 32X behind it. And there's the Octopus Man.
Oh, yep, here we go. Yeah, as you can see, it actually captured us that time. It's just... everything's weird about this game.
Because you'll
Well, that
notice,
little
like,
bit was kind of interesting where you go down into what seemed like a big top or something they were kind of going for, maybe.
Yeah.
yeah,
Kind of
like
a mechanical underbelly.
you go like deep underground in this one. It's like it's really nice the amount of background work that they have.
Yep. As the levels get larger, as you go through more of them, the backgrounds get ever more elaborate. And, if you can actually parse everything around you, it's really cool, actually.
There is some oddness with that sort of green grassy gassiness in the middle because it's not very pixel dense. It looks almost like someone's used like a Photoshop brush sort of thing. It looks very
Yeah, everything
fuzzy.
on the foreground looks blurry, and I assume that's to create some sort of illusion of distance effect, but I'm not really sure it just comes through. It kind of ends up looking muddy. I guess the nicest thing I can say about it is that it really calls attention to the mechanical aspects in the foreground that we saw earlier.
See, now that stage, Speed Slider Level 3, that was actually okay. Like, the game needed some more stages kind of like that.
Well, Speed Slider is probably the good one, because it's based on what you get when you make that level, the circus-y level in Sonic Crackers or Sonic Stadium, actually, develop it enough that it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly this game is just sort of weird.
I bet you each of these zones has at least one good stage in it.
Yeah,
Like one that's just exceptional that they should have just used as the template.
Well, I mean, you've mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that because Muteki, I think he said it off recording previously, but all these stages have like 1 or 2 templates, and that's it. The whole game is that.
Yeah, each of the 5 stages, they almost all look the same. Like if you were to pick up a map of them, there are sort of notable set pieces in each act that all sort of show up in relatively the same places. Like in the weird funhouse level that we started off with the mini boss. Like the mini boss tends to show up in about the same place every level, and there's stuff on either side of it that's pretty consistent. And
so did they copy and paste the level design in some cases?
Sort of. It wouldn't surprise me if what they did was they had like 2 or 3 acts for each level, and then like Act 1 is a simplified version of one, and maybe Acts 4 and 5 are just the same thing, but made like unnecessarily labyrinthine, overly difficult to traverse.
They were clearly pressed for time in a lot of ways. You can just tell because the levels, they're gorgeous. There's a lot of work put into them, but most of them feel barren. They feel very empty. They're missing key Sonic things like spikes and...
Yeah, and just there's not enough stuff to interact with sometimes. The enemies are mostly ignorable because the consequences for getting hit are relatively slim, especially if your partner character winds up in front of you. You're not liable to get hit, and so there's not a whole lot of risks that you have to worry about.
Now that's why this stage is so good to me, is because it has that extra little touch to it, the boats moving up and around.
Yeah, the boats do stuff like this. They take you to different parts of the level, and the mechanic works reasonably well. It's not broken in the context of your teammate character.
Right.
Well, this stage also has a very fairly basic layout. I believe this one is almost always just left, right, left, right, left, right. In terms of where you go, you just kind of run to one side, you go up the boats, then you go to the other side, and go up or down the boats, and that's the level. Also, you got the pineapple fruit tree things here, which I quite like.
Yeah, those are usually the indication that you're getting near to the end of the stage.
Yeah, and
interesting thing about pineapple trees, they're very infuriating when you see them. They're actually like a tiny little stick with a pineapple on top. The most aggravating thing I've ever seen nature produce.
Well, that's why pineapples
that's really what they look like.
Extra expensive because they don't grow in like huge bundles or anything. They're just kind of like these.
They're just one fruit per tree. Yes, that's it. It's the most infuriating thing I've ever seen.
So this is me doing the same bonus stage again. This game does not do the, because I believe every other Sonic game is like, oh, you lost that stage? Doesn't matter, go to the next one. This game makes you repeat the stages, I believe.
Well, Sonic 2 does that as well. Yeah, I think it works better because you get a little bit better chance of like learning the stage that you're currently trying to run through. And, in addition, like each special stage gets progressively harder. Like, they're not all sort of variations on a specific theme or different enough that it makes sense to conquer them in roughly any order. They very explicitly get longer, more elaborate, and more difficult as they go on. Which, again, they really sort of feel like the meat of this game because they work.
I don't think the background changes in them, though, does it? I think it's always...
No, it doesn't. Yeah, there's a little bit of difference in the color in the foreground, but despite the fact that, the background is the one thing being done by a stock Genesis, there's no variation whatsoever.
That's a big shame, because it worked really well in Sonic CD to have the
yes.
backgrounds. As we praised, I think, multiple times.
Right. Yeah, there were some really stunning backgrounds in those special stages.
This one's I think it's doing some palette cycling a little bit, maybe, but no.
Yeah, unlike the actual 3D rendered stuff, like, it uses a different set of colors every time. Like, it sort of matches up with what the actual ring you see here is. Like, this time it's blue.
I think there's some minor artifacting on the screen from the, not being on a 32X, if anyone's wondering, so just to point that out. I do have a 32X, but this game costs like $100 US, so I'm like...
I was lucky enough to get this game when it was
version.
maybe like 10 or $5, and it was $5 to $10 in a bargain bin, and I got the 32X itself too for like just a chump change.
Mine was
like
$20. Yeah, they're more expensive these days, which is why I don't know that I'm quite so eager to say you should get one of these, as I might have been like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Like the price went. I blame. What is it, Ratchet Boy? I think it was. I blame you, Ratchet Boy, He did an article that was like, the 32X, and here's some great games you can get really cheap. And it was
There
like...
are actually good games for the 32X, like Virtua Fighter. And, you know, maybe not so much now that they have the incredible versions on 3DS, but like Afterburner, Space Harrier, those
yeah,
are
some
pretty
solid
There was
ports.
Calibria as well, but that's
Oh,
probably
man.
the most expensive game for the system.
Yeah.
It's
it's
easily
so
the most
hard to find,
expensive
yeah.
English game.
It's also the one that's easily, like, you know, as far as good 32X games go, it's like the only one that's unique to the platform. That and Virtua Racing, I guess. But even that one's, you know,
Well,
not
Virtua
quite
Racing-
Was
so.
Chaotix ever re-released?
You said
Did
good
it?
games.
Oh, that's right. I should have been paying
That
attention.
too.
That's reading
Well, I mean-
comprehension.
I mean, you know, it's a 32X exclusive, but yeah, it's never been re-released anywhere, because you can't just say, you know, oh yeah, we're gonna get a Genesis emulator, we'll license one, maybe we'll get the ROM. Nah, I mean, 32X emulation is like, it has the same problems as N64 emulation, which is it's sort of from this era where everything's just weird enough that it's hard to port and requires a lot of taxing specifics, like Kega Fusion, the emulator that we're running this on right now,
Yeah.
requires a lot of hacks to get Chaotix working functionally. And at least back in the time when I was sort of actually playing this game, like, nothing else could do it. It was either incredibly buggy, leading to regular crashes, or worse.
I think there is
You know,
a
you just couldn't play it at
someone's
all.
working on a perfect emulation for the Sega Mega Drive.
That would probably be
32X, I
Mess, if I had to guess.
Yeah, well, there's what dude going by Nemesis is working on. I forget what the actual project name is called, but I think he's got links to it on like the Spritesmine forums and stuff, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. But it's like, yeah, cycle accurate Genesis emulation. The problem is cycle accurate Genesis emulation is already really hard. My computer isn't as current anymore. Like, you know, it's like 3 or 4 years old now. But you know, it can only run like cycle accurate Genesis emulation at like 40 frames per second. If I tried to do cycle accurate 32X, I'm sure it wouldn't get above 10 ever. And that's like for easy stuff.
Well, I mean, it'll
So
get
wait,
there
is
in
it
a
more
few
difficult than cycle accurate SNES emulation? I mean, obviously it's leagues ahead of NES or something like that.
Oh, well, the thing is, there's like 4 unique active processing units in this thing. There's the Z80, which is way back from the Master System, held on presumably for legacy purposes. There's, you know, the standard Motorola 6800, or 68,000 rather, that's, you know, your main Genesis CPU. And then the bulk of the actual hardware on the 32X is 2 SH2 processors. They're basically the same thing as what you find as the main processing units in the Sega Saturn, but they're clocked down a little bit. I guess presumably to make them a little bit cheaper. And, you know, I sort of want to touch on that again because we're talking, you know, about 32X hardware. The Sega's, like, the 32X wouldn't have been good, but it would have been understandable as a hardware choice if the Sega Saturn had been backward compatible with its games. You've got that little cartridge slot, should be able to fit, you know, your Sega cartridges from your Genesis and 32X in there. It's basically all the same hardware and stuff that can run in a legacy mode for compatibility, but nothing, you know. So the 32X is this weird orphan piece of technology with, you know, a reasonably diverse library, but hard to argue that anyone should, you know, care about it outside of as a novelty.
Stop buying it. I want to get the games cheap again.
You know, I will say though, I actually have a copy of this game now. Somehow I managed to find one relatively cheaply. I forget if it was in box or not. Like, I set it
Mine is
aside.
boxed with manuals. So
Yeah.
I lucked out there. But again, this would have been 1998, 99 when I would have gotten something
Oh
like
yeah,
this.
that is when you could definitely get something like this for $10 because everyone's like, 32X? That joke of a machine?
And they
Yeah,
still,
no,
they
please
still say
take this
that,
off of our
but
shelves.
but now it costs a ton of money. It's really curious. Like,
Yeah. Like,
Has like the Jaguar and stuff seen that much inflation? The 3DO?
this is where I fucked up, by the way. I thought.
oh, yeah. Yeah, like the slopes and the camera interact in just such weird ways that it can be really hard to judge jumping distance
I will
properly
say this, and I
sometimes.
hate to say this about the bonus stages, but they do remind me a little bit of Bubsy 3D, which coincidentally was supposedly supposed to be a 32X title. Supposedly, that's the rumor.
It makes perfect sense. If you look at the game, you look at the 32X, it makes
It's
way
so-
more sense.
Yeah, it's very dated in its look, even on a PS1. There's like no shading whatsoever. It does sort of feel like it was that sort of palletized 32X style. And here we use Bomb, who is probably the worst character because when he takes damage, he has a little aftershock effect that can hit you.
I don't
he
think he
explodes,
actually took
literally.
damage from me, so we miss out on that.
Yeah, again, it's very easy to avoid enemies. Getting hit is relatively uncommon, which is sort of why I say that it's just you go through the bonus stages, collect rings, and then cash out at the end in the special stage, because the actual like mazes, like the hardest thing to do is find your way around.
Oh, I killed Bomb, but I didn't have any rings, so he didn't explode.
Right. Yeah, he just goes away. Like same as everything else. It would be sort of fun if that could happen to him. But like that's the thing with Heavy, for example. Heavy is actually the best character for the very end of the game because he is incapable of taking damage.
Really? Huh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's like his one claim to fame. So if you get him for the final battle against, spoilers, Metal Sonic, you know, he like the first phase of that game you don't get rings. So it's all about sort of hitting that slot machine where the stage is and trying to do damage to him by getting lucky and hitting the right spot. If that sounds frustrating, I assure you it is. But yeah, you don't get rings. So the point is to not take so much damage and be able to hold out for your partner character to show back up again. It's more frustrating than it is actually like outright difficult. But if you have Heavy, you know,
Does that machine
your
do
partner
anything,
character
by the
doesn't
way?
risk. Oh, well, it controls the elevator thing that sort of allows you to travel through different parts of the stage. Like you may have seen it like in the center parts of Acts 2 and 3, I think, if you're watching this sort of weird kind of 3D thing that's moving up and down. If you touch it, you know, you can ride it up and down to different parts through the stage. It's very slow though and kind of annoying to traverse. I feel like if you had a word cloud, like the biggest word in my vocabulary describing this game would probably be annoying.
Yes,
which is not
very much
wrong.
so.
It is not wrong. Like,
Well, you could see me just there. I went to a spot, and then I got an invulnerability power-up, and then I spent the entire time trying to get back into the game.
yeah. And now we're stuck in a part of the stage that serves no purpose whatsoever except to slow you down and, as near as I can tell, be irritated. Because again, you've been made small. Being made
I was
small
looking for
sucks.
secrets.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, now you jump up.
And then there's the exit for some reason. I
That's
don't
the
really know
exit.
what the hell was going on in
Oh,
that
yes,
stage.
Yeah.
that's right. This will lead us to the boss, too. Like, there's a carousel, and you slowly climb up it, I think, or something like that. It's
Yeah.
You wish. That's the last
The
time
set
we'll see that
pieces in this game are
stage.
so strange.
Right, once you get to about level 5 in any given...
Yeah,
Five
level
is the
5
boss
is the
fight.
boss
You'll
level.
never hit it. You'll never hit it.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like
if
they wanna
anyone's been
save the
paying
bosses for
attention,
last.
the pallet's been cycling here. I believe it's like a nighttime system we didn't really
Yep.
mention,
Yeah,
but
there are like 4 different palettes per stage. There's early morning, daytime, evening, and then straight up night.
A
And
lot of Sonic hacks actually make use of that sort of
Yeah.
thing, color cycling.
yep, like that's literally all it is for the most part. There's no change in the actual like level geometry. There are a couple of items here and there that change their places, but very infrequently. Like the biggest change I think from times, like between daytime, nighttime, and all that, is that weird mini boss thing with the fists that swing around in the Amazing Arena stage. Which we've been to Act 2 on that, haven't we?
I don't think we have been to Act 2 on Amazing
jeez.
Arena. We haven't even hit the skyscraper level, I don't think.
Yeah, we haven't hit that one at all. I think that one might be my favorite, just because it feels like the one most sort of that works best with this mechanic. Because like
and it's
way back,
vertically oriented too,
Yeah.
which most Sonic stages aren't.
yeah, so those two things in particular make it distinctive enough that I think it works well. This one's not bad though. I mean, I'm not gonna complain about this level.
I tried to
It's
get this for
calming
several
almost.
minutes.
Oh, yep, there we go. Those are spikes, yeah. I keep forgetting there are spikes in this level because you see them so infrequently.
You see a lot of basic Sonic tropes very infrequently in this game. It's just
I think a
absolutely
lot of
the
agonizing.
most common...
Is that they
There's-
realized that the game doesn't work properly, so they couldn't use basic things.
They couldn't do the loops because of technical issues. The spikes would probably just be annoying because your partner would get stuck on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what happens in, like, Sonic Crackers, is that you take Tails, you throw him up into the spikes, he's literally stuck there, and he goes through what looks like a dying or drunk animation. By the way, that's an animation that all of the characters have in this game that seems like it would make sense as sort of oh no, you've lost, you know, now you're going to stand around all dizzy-like as the level fades out, but that's not what happens. So it just goes to that same weird purple background, and you just kind of sit around in your impatient idle animation. It's just so weird because it just feels not coherent.
That's this game in a nutshell,
Yes,
really.
it really is. Nothing about this game feels coherent.
Except the art
You know, if there's-
and the music. You know.
There's one issue with Marina Madness, though, I have noticed. There's not a lot of parallax in the background. In fact, I don't think there's any.
No,
I don't
there's
think there's
none.
that many background layers.
Yeah, you
all.
don't really notice it. I think it's because of the use
boats,
of the boats. Because again, you know, I think that's
Or
Genesis
wait,
effect
what? You
too.
don't notice it because what? Sorry.
Oh, like I think the boats
Yeah.
are being run on the stock Genesis as well. I think. Don't quote me on that. I haven't played this game in a while, and I haven't really sort of run your like graphics debugger stuff either.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why you don't see a whole lot of parallax effect, is because everything's sort of going down to running the boats.
Well, I mean,
Sense.
they didn't seem to
Yeah.
really care that much, but it would be probably very, very busy to have more moving stuff as well.
Yeah, like this is a very simple background. It's stationary. It's
Because this stage doesn't imply that you move that fast through it either, you know? Like, you're just
yeah,
kind of
right.
moving with the boats.
Everything about this stage is you know, again, very slow, maybe even chill, you know, Marina and chill.
It took me ages to get down to there, because I'm like, is it seriously down there? Of course it was down there.
Yeah, no, despite the fact that all of the levels seem based on this one very specific template, there are these handful of things that make it weird, that mean you can't actually trust your intuition. So, like, I don't think this is necessarily the only way to continue through the stage, as I recall, but it's
Oh my
probably one of the easier ones to access.
That spring, that poor spring. You just can't do anything.
Yeah, but as you can see there, that bit like where you just flew up through that entire corridor,
Yeah.
that's why I like the tower stage.
I'm
Because
pretty
the
pro
mechanic
about that.
actually, the mechanic lends itself really well to that sort of verticality. Like you can go up and down really easy through using the hold mechanic well. I wish they'd done more of that with the game, because it's like the one place where having this mechanic like makes sense. Oh, and
Oh,
you
you
don't
didn't
even
jump to
bother
hit the
this
ring.
time, huh?
You have to jump
I-
before you hit the sign. Wonderful.
I was getting pretty tired at this point.
Oh, yeah, well, that's fair. I am not going to blame anyone for being frustrated at this game.
Right.
At this point, this is the semi-spoilers. I was like, oh god, I'll just do one more stage, and please, for the love of God, be the last stage. And?
Oh, man.
Thank goodness.
So,
you
okay,
know.
here's a question. We've gone through this entire game. We've seen why it doesn't work. What would you do if you had to re-release this game? If you said, okay, we want to make Knuckles Chaotix, but make it good, make it as it should have been.
Special stage mode. Just make it so you have to go through all of the special stages. Like, that's it. Just the special stages, because they're the best part of this game. Sonic Jam did this for all of the, you know, games that it included, which are considered the good Genesis games. You know, 1, 2, 3 Knuckles. You know, and it's like, yeah.
Thanks,
go
Chalmy.
Oh my god.
Thanks,
That's
buddy.
why-
Robotnik's deadly speed traps.
That's why
They rear their ugly head again.
Yeah, that's why you need to have the hold button here, because stuff like that can and will happen if you're not being careful.
I was
And that's
being
why there are
careful.
no
He
loops.
drunkenly ran through the level.
I will say the other nice thing about this stage is that it probably has some of the more menacing enemies. Like, some of the enemies here actually represent a threat. Like those pink dudes that are holding onto the mini Death Stars. Like, they'll drop the Death Stars and it's easy to get hit by them after you destroy them.
I'm not
Like,
really
you
sure what's
actually-
supposed to be going on the background here, though, right now.
It's like you're looking down at a
like-
beach, but at a
Yeah,
weird
it's
angle.
very beach-like, yeah.
It's just because of
'Cause-
the
'cause-
nighttime look.
Yeah, I think it's because you're so high up is the idea, that you sort of have to approach it sort of obliquely, which is why everything looks like it's angled. It's still a little weird, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like curved or 4-point perspective or something.
I don't think I
Yeah.
get hit by any of the Death Star guys, by the way. I think that's all you'll see
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, there's another enemy in this level though that I really like. That's sort of just like it looks like a walking anti-aircraft gun or something, and it just fires a fucking ton of missiles at you, and it's like lock on. Oh, I think it might be that green dude that you
That we'll
passed.
never see again because I don't think I go.
Yeah,
I can't go back that
Yeah.
way.
yeah. So
I think this
so
is the end of the stage, actually.
Yes, the end of the stage is always basically at the top for this level, but they do fake you out exactly one time. Like in the speed slider stage where the clear thing was in the middle of the level, like they put it on the left instead, and it's like, oh, you went to the right, haha. And it's just sort of it's more of an annoying fake out than anything.
More of a dick move, really.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you did
Poor
that. It's
form.
not really clever.
So, yeah, so I've done all the I've played every stage, so I decided to do just one more thing. And I think you can guess what it's gonna be. I'm gonna crank open the color test, and we're gonna do
Yes! Yeah,
it's
color
the
test.
only choice, really, in this game.
Yeah. The sound test is fun though too. You know.
Oh, we'll
all
go
of
to the
music
sound
in this
test.
game's good. Oh
We
yes.
The sound test is great because you can actually see them play the music.
We'll
Yeah.
get through both.
I think I think like the effect is hard coded, but it's still pretty thoughtful. The thing I like is that it actually shows you what note is playing at any given time on each individual channel of the game, like the hardware for sound.
Yeah, so this is where I get my
That is such a
cheat
basic
code.
menu.
And here we go. I got to put in the cheat code.
Oh, hey, you can see the working name for the 32X, the Mars.
Yes, Project Mars, like all of the other planetary stuff that was going on with your Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter.
I'm kind of glad that
Uranus.
they didn't end up giving all those names out, because I think that
Yes.
it works a lot better as just like the 32X and the Dreamcast rather than any like bizarre.
Yes.
'Cause
Right.
The Saturn now feels like its own thing than some sort of tie-in.
Yeah. Plus, now no one can say that you got to go stick it up your Sega Uranus.
But yeah, so you did ask how I would fix the game. I mean, like the short answer is that I would I'd make the AI. I'd get someone to actually make the AI try and help you, because
Right.
he's kind of they don't pay attention. They're just assholes. So yeah, the cheat puts in that Amy. She's not normally there.
She just dances around and says cool, sweet, and catchy.
And she's not wrong, like
Yeah, this is good music. I like it. It's a fun enough effect that this might be the best moment of the game right here.
yeah.
This,
I
don't
thought
do
so.
anything else. Just chill out in the sound test. Listen to the music.
Put in
Some
that
of which
cheat.
gets cut off overly early because the scripting in this game is strange and nothing makes sense. Nobody in this game seemed to be planning things correctly. Also, there are like 20 people responsible for the art in the game, which is, I'm sure, one of the reasons why like everything is just such this coherent mess of colors. Like attraction designer, which I think is the people who are responsible for the art of the individual stages. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different people. So, that's cool.
That's roughly the number of stages you see in the game, including the final boss fight
Yeah.
and the training stage, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no coherence whatsoever. 5 character designers, by the way, one for just about every character, too. But only 3 enemy designers. And 2 boss designers, both of whom were also the enemy designers as well. And yeah, like those guys were also on the Sonic CD staff as well. Takumi Miyake and Ryo Kudo.
But yeah,
Or excuse me, no, Ryo Kudo was not. He was on Nights though. But yeah, Takumi Miyake enemy designer. He was one of them, and Kazuyushi Hoshino was Sonic CD as well, and Restar, and stuff like Sonic CD, Restar, and Knuckles Chaotix all share a whole lot of like staff in common, and like a whole bunch of the Restar staff went on to become Nice into Dreams, along with your original Sonic Team trio of what are their names? Yasuhara, I think, was still there at the time. Yuji Naka, obviously, and Oshima, the dude who was like the actual Sonic character designer, like drawing the art.
Yeah, and so, as you said, like, basically, if you want to play Knuckles Chaotix, don't do it. Listen to the soundtrack.
Please don't. Listen to the soundtrack. Yeah.
You can you can play Ristar or Nights into the Dreams. Those are great options for alternative Sonic-style games. But,
yes, they're beautiful games. They look a lot like this. If you think this game, this is a very pretty game, I want to play something like it that isn't this game, play one of those. You'll feel so much better.
I think you can get both of them on Steam too, whereas this game is in the purgatory of the 32X forever.
A fitting punishment.
If there's one thing I would do to fix this game, they should have made the whole combi ring thing optional. Should have been either an optional mode or just a two-player gimmick,
two-player
whatever.
exclusive,
bonus stages, whatever you want to call it. And then they should have just made a traditional Sonic game with 5 playable characters. That would have been great.
Make two-player mode work, too.
Yeah, you already got the great tile sets. You've already got some interesting gimmicks in most of the stages, even if they're kind of half-baked. You could bring back a lot of the fun Sonic elements, like the loop-de-loops, the corkscrew loops, that kind of great stuff.
Right. You're no longer tied down to the technical restrictions of the console, so, why not grow the game a little bit? Maybe even add a 6th stage of some sort.
I mean, basically your answer is fix the game by making huge changes to the fundamental elements of the game.
That's true. That is very true. On the other hand, they already have the assets there, so
what I mean is like
they gotta cut out the cancer,
Chaotix is kind
of
fundamentally flawed in ways that I would be very impressed if someone could wrestle out like a great game without changing almost anything, because it's just such a mess. And we're out of video too, but Muteki, would you like to finish?
I don't know that I have a whole lot else that I want to add. I've been probably monopolizing a lot of the commentary time here, but there's just so much to talk about where this game went wrong. And it, like we're saying right now, you can't just do one or two things to fix it. You almost have to go back down to a fundamental level. Either you base this entire game around the weird co-op mechanic, which maybe you do. Maybe you say, from now on, we want this game to be playable with 2 characters. We want to implement some sort of online co-op that works, and more importantly, we want the ability to make this a game that you can play with 2 players that doesn't devolve into a tug of war. So if I wanted to say, I want to change exactly one thing, I'm going to say it's that enable you to stay in place, like the whole button. Like, make it work on yourself in 2-player mode. Make 2-player mode the focus. And I don't know if it'll make the game good, but it'll mean that, you can find someone, and you can play the game together, and you can make jokes about it, and you've maybe got something on the level of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, where the fun is in how dysfunctional everything is. But otherwise, that's the thing. The 2-player mode, if it worked, I don't know that this would be a good game, but it would be a game that would be enjoyable on account of its flaws. But as a solitary experience, it's mostly just boring and frustrating.
I only got through an hour of it.
Thinking on this is something you would probably have to do nowadays. You mentioned online co-op. I'm thinking something like you could probably do this one of 2 ways. You could make it competitive. You could make it like the Sonic 2, 2-player race mode. Do it that way. That would be interesting. Or you could
maybe 4-player race.
Right, exactly. You race through the stages and you can set traps or whatever. Do something to screw over other players. Or alternatively, I've not seen this done with Sonic anyway, in most platformers, but you could almost maybe do like a cooperative Lost Vikings kind of thing where each player has to split up and do something, collaborate some way across the level. And you'd have to, obviously, the camera would have to be broken up. you know,
Right.
it'd be interesting to see that tackled in a way.
You'd still
have
have
an
to
easier
change
course
some
and a
things
harder
about the
course.
design. Yeah.
I'll
Like-
have to drag you guys kicking and screaming to the end of the video. I know you desperately want to
Yep.
fix Knuckles Chaotix, because I know that we all want it to be a good game. I know that. Like,
Yeah.
everyone wants this to be a good game.
There's so much promise in it, but just wasted.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Any one idea in this game could work as a game on its own. So that is my positive review of Knuckles Chaotix, if one could be said to exist.
I don't really have anything necessarily positive or negative to say other than, you know, you mentioned there's 20 different level designers working on this game, or 20 different artists. This is clearly a case where Sega said to themselves, you know what would get this game out faster and better if we just threw more and more and more and more people at this. You know,
That
new
doesn't
hardware,
work, and this is why.
new everything. Just
Yeah.
throw everything you can at it, and then it never works. It never works.
Yeah. Same problem with Sonic Heroes, I think. That was like right when Sega was restructuring. It's a game that I think is a little bit more coherent because I think it's just slightly more focused, but it still has that sort of mechanical spillover and has that distinct feeling of there just being so many people working on the game that there's not enough coherent vision. There are just too many ideas all at once, never fully tested.
And I believe Heroes had the exact same problem with the levels just being repeated and being really long
Yes.
and not being fun. I mean, that's almost...
I like Heroes more, but I don't know that I'd recommend it past like the fourth or fifth stage.
It really amuses me that that's kind of like the two main games with the Chaotix cast in it are like the two scrappy, trashy Sonic games that are like,
Find
I don't know, guys. Like, I mean, 2006 is something else, you know? Like, I don't even... Like, 2006 doesn't even count. Like, it's not even in the same field. It's like, I don't even know.
That's a Sonic game that literally got like pasted over. Like it's like a Final Fantasy game that they stuck Sonic into after the fact. I believe Andrea Ritsu pointed that out. That she has some nice, like, great, really in-depth article about all of the flaws going on in this game, how it was developed, why it didn't work, and that is literally one of the reasons that it was not a Sonic game until after they stuck Sonic into it.
Yeah,
It
it's...
doesn't look or feel like one, like a traditional Sonic game. It's like they
No, it doesn't.
It's like they took an Unreal Engine demo and it's like, let's put Sonic in there, you know, just use all the
Yeah,
assets, you know, base assets and stuff.
Well, I
It-
mean,
it
the
feels
core
Sonic
team
CD.
went off to, what's the name? Sonic and the Rings or whatever. Like, they took half
Secret
the team
Rings,
to,
yeah.
make that.
Yeah, Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic and the Black Knight are both interesting little side games. I didn't think they were that bad as they were kind of reviewed poorly, but I don't think they were that bad, really. Just kind of weird.
People are buzzed.
Yeah,
Anyway,
they're
thank you
different, but they're coherent. Sorry.
for, thanks everyone for joining us on Chaotix. That's fine. So thank you for joining us again, Muteki. Because, you know, like, I mean, you
Glad to
said
be
you
here.
monopolized the chat, but that's like, but you monopolized it with like tons of information that no one else is gonna have. So, you know, everyone appreciated it. So, thank you, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right, see ya.
All right, well.
What?